Based on true events in 1966, inside a United States Navy military building, a man named Billy Sunday sits watching the news. The report is all about one sailor, Carl Brazier, who has just located a nuclear bomb on the ocean floor. Carl is making history. He is the first black diver in the U.S. Navy, but Carl's story starts far from any base or headline. When he was still a kid, Carl lived with his parents in a remote rural village. His father worked as a corn farmer, grinding through long days under the sun. Carl watched him struggle every day, and he could not stand doing nothing. So he stepped in and offered to help. At first, his father refused. He told Carl to focus on school and enjoy being a child like everyone else. But Carl kept insisting, and eventually his father gave in and let him work. Years later, Carl is grown. One day while he is out in the fields, his mother rushes in and tells him to get ready. This is the day he leaves to try out for the U.S. Navy training program. When it is time to say goodbye, Carl's father makes him promise something painful, that he will never come back to the village. It hurts to say it, but his father believes it will protect Carl's future. If Carl wants to succeed, he cannot keep looking over his shoulder or feeling tied down by home. Carl arrives at the base, expecting training, expecting a real chance. Instead, he is assigned to the kitchen. In that era, the military still blocked black men from being treated as equals. They were pushed into service roles and expected to stay in the background, beneath the white sailors who were given the opportunities. The next day, Carl sees the white trainees swimming together. Someone casually explains that the swim schedules are separated, one for white sailors, one for black sailors. Carl cannot accept it. To him, it makes no sense. They are all human, so why should the water be different for each of them? So Carl does the unthinkable. He joins the swim anyway. The moment he enters, the insults start flying. Even the ship's captain orders his assistant to drag Carl out of the water. But Carl does not back off. He swims fast, so fast that he outruns the white soldiers around him. It is impossible to ignore. For that, Carl is thrown into a punishment room. Later, the captain visits him and admits something unexpected. He is impressed by Carl's speed. And then, just like that, Carl is transferred into the rescue swim team. Carl is overjoyed. He immediately writes home to tell his parents the news. This is where his real test begins. This is Men of Honor. However, the very next day, everything changes. A helicopter crashes into the sea. Panic spreads fast and the captain orders a diver to go down and save the pilot. Time drags on. Finally, the diver resurfaces. His name is Billy Sunday, one of the Navy's elite, a master diver, the highest level a Navy diver can hold. The pilot is pulled out, but it is too late to save him. So a second diver prepares to go down for the co-pilot still trapped below. Back then, a single diver could only rescue one person at a time. Because the gear was brutally heavy, it could weigh over 200 kilograms. As the second diver begins the descent, disaster hits again. The safety line snaps, and the diver is yanked straight down to the ocean floor. Billy Sunday makes a reckless choice. He dives after him without a dive suit. Somehow they both survive. But the cost is severe. Billy's lungs are badly damaged, and he is rushed into the hospital. Doctors forbid him from diving again until he fully recovers. Billy cannot handle that sentence. The frustration boils over and he causes a scene. The next day, he is brought into a formal hearing to answer for what happened. The entire Navy community is there and Carl is there too. And when the decision comes down, the captain strips Billy of his rank and reassigns him as the trainer for a new group of divers. After the hearing ends, Carl approaches the captain with a clear request. He asks to be allowed into dive training at the main base. Carl explains that he was deeply inspired by Billy Sunday's rescue the day before, and from that moment on, he knows exactly what he wants to become, a rescuer just like him. Seeing Carl's determination, the captain finally gives in and approves his transfer from the swim division to the diving division. The next day, Carl arrives at the gate with his official orders and hands them to the guard. The guard looks confused. No black man has ever been allowed inside the naval dive base before. Moments later, Billy Sunday walks out. Unbeknownst to Carl, this man is now assigned as the instructor for the dive training camp. Carl explains why he is there. Instead of welcoming him, Billy mocks him, insisting that a black man does not belong in the diving unit and should stay in the kitchen where he supposedly belongs. Carl absorbs the humiliation in silence. Billy leaves, but Carl does not. He remains standing outside the gate for hours. When Billy returns later that day and sees Carl still there, he is irritated and tells Carl to go back to his village. Carl refuses. He explains that he made a promise to his father that he would become a member of the U.S. Navy no matter what. Faced with Carl's unshakable resolve, Billy finally allows him into the camp. Inside, Carl is greeted by a trainee named Snowhill. Snowhill is the only white trainee willing to acknowledge Carl without judging him by his skin color. He explains that the camp is led by a former Navy man known as Mr. Pappy, then escorts Carl to the barracks. The tension is immediate. The other white trainees clearly reject Carl's presence. When Billy arrives, he formally announces that Carl is now part of his training camp. One by one, the other trainees leave the barracks, saying they would rather quit the Navy than share a room with a black man. In the end, only Carl and Snowhill remain. That night, Billy wakes Carl up by force. He drags him outside and soaks him with water. Billy makes it clear that Carl needs to know his place. By accepting a black trainee, Billy believes his own reputation has been ruined. Carl endures the punishment without fighting back.
Long boarding and diving. I know your sweet smell hung in every fucking goddamn shack I ever lived in.
The next morning, Carl's first official training begins. Billy explains that many people will fail because swimming and diving are two very different skills. Knowing that Snowhill was once the best swimmer in his hometown, Billy tests him first. Snowhill fails to adapt to diving, and Billy immediately removes him from the program. Days pass, and Carl continues training alongside the others. When the written exam arrives, Carl performs poorly. He is warned that one more bad score will result in his dismissal from the program. During the semester break, Carl chooses to spend his time studying at the city library. There, he meets Jo, a librarian who is also studying to become a nurse. When Carl asks for her help, she initially refuses, explaining that Navy material is extremely difficult and usually takes months to understand. But after seeing Carl's persistence, she agrees to help him study. At the next exam, Carl finally earns a strong score. Later that day, Billy resumes dive training. He orders two new trainees, Rocky and Isert, to weld a sunken ship. While Isert is working, the wreck suddenly shifts and nearly slides into a trench, trapping both men inside and turning the exercise into a life-threatening situation. In the middle of the chaos, their air hoses become tangled from above. Everyone hears desperate cries for help. Rocky and Isert are trapped underwater. Carl immediately steps forward and volunteers to save them both. With no other options left, Billy Sunday gives him only 5 minutes before their air runs out. During the rescue, fear takes over. Rocky panics and escapes on his own, leaving Isert behind. Carl is furious, but he stays focused and continues the mission. Fighting against time and exhaustion, Carl pushes through.
We gotta get out of here. She's going down. Carl, don't leave me. I need my...
Against all odds, he manages to get oxygen to Isert and save his life. After the incident, Billy Sunday reads out an official commendation from the Navy captain. But shockingly, the award is given to Rocky instead. Even though Carl is the one who saved a life, the commander refuses to acknowledge his actions simply because Carl is black. The other trainees see everything. They witness Carl's patience and restraint, and slowly their attitude toward him begins to change. Little by little, they start accepting him as one of their own. The next day, Carl calls his family back in the village. On the phone, his mother delivers devastating news. His father has passed away. Carl is overwhelmed with grief. His mother explains that his father chose to hide his illness so Carl could stay focused on his training and chase his dreams without worry. Even late into the night, Carl still cannot fully process that his father is gone. Thinking of the one person who has always supported him, Carl reaches out to Jo and asks her to come keep him company. While he waits, a woman approaches him. She turns out to be Gwen, Billy Sunday's wife. Seeing Carl in tears, Gwen shares that they are both hurting. On her wedding anniversary, Billy chose to celebrate with his fellow sailors instead of being with her. Gwen then takes Carl to the bar where Billy is partying. As soon as Carl walks in, the Navy men notice him and alert Billy. Billy reacts with rage, publicly humiliating Carl and insisting that a black man does not belong there. This time, Carl does not stay silent. For the first time, he pushes back. His frustration finally erupts and he stands up to Billy, convinced that Billy's anger comes from jealousy over Carl's growing achievements. When Jo arrives, she is stunned to see the confrontation unfold. Billy then challenges Carl to an underwater breath-holding contest. If Carl loses, he will be expelled from the training camp. But if Carl wins, Snowhill will be allowed back into the program. Exhausted by years of insults and mistreatment, Carl accepts the challenge without hesitation. Carl wins. After it is over, Carl is confused to see Joe suddenly nearby. He rushes after her, wanting answers. Joe explains that she came to say goodbye. She has been offered a job in another city and is leaving the next day. The news hits Carl hard. Without hesitation, he gathers his courage and proposes to Joe on the spot. He promises that once he finishes his training, he will find her, no matter where she is. The following night, Mr. Pappy summons Billy Sunday. He orders Billy to make sure Carl does not pass the exam the next day, no matter how it is done. Mr. Pappy refuses to accept the idea of a black man graduating from the camp. Even though both men have clashed with Carl before, Billy is far more disturbed by the way Mr. Pappy abuses his authority for personal prejudice. After what he has witnessed recently, Billy knows Carl is far more capable than anyone gives him credit for. Still, defying a direct order from a superior would cost him everything, so he has no choice but to comply. Billy later passes that order on to Carl. The confrontation quickly turns heated because Carl refuses to back down and insists on taking the exam. In a moment of rage, Billy smashes the radio Carl received from his father. Seeing the last remaining keepsake from his father destroyed leaves Carl devastated. The next morning, as the other candidates prepare, Carl unexpectedly shows up. He locks eyes with Billy, steady and confident. Faced with that resolve, Billy reluctantly allows him to take the exam. Once everyone is ready, the test begins. From above, equipment bags are thrown into the water. When it is Carl's turn, his bag is secretly torn apart on Mr. Pappy's orders. Underwater, Carl has no idea what has been done. He keeps searching for his tools anyway, refusing to give up. Hours pass. One by one, the other candidates complete the task, until Carl is the only one left. Watching from above, Mr. Pappy orders Billy to leave Carl underwater until he runs out of air. Billy is torn. If he disobeys, his career is finished. At the same time, Joe, who is at work, is struck by a sudden sense that something is wrong with Carl, and she rushes toward the test site. Night falls and Carl is still underwater. Billy and the remaining candidates grow increasingly anxious. From a distance, Mr. Pappy continues to forbid anyone from helping Carl. Caught between fear and conscience, Billy finally chooses to defy the order and commands the others to pull Carl to the surface. But just as they try to lift him, Carl completes the final task by releasing the anchor. With that, he officially passes. The next day, at the graduation ceremony, Snow Hill arrives with both good news and bad news. The Navy has approved Snow Hill's return to dive training, but Billy Sunday has been dismissed for defying Mr. Pappy's orders and allowing Carl to graduate. Carl is left speechless. He quietly packs his belongings. On his bed, he is stunned to see his father's radio fully repaired. He knows exactly who fixed it. Years later, Carl is now a senior Navy diver. He is married to Joe, and they have a child together. He is assigned to the most critical mission in American history, locating a lost nuclear bomb deep beneath the ocean. The commander warns that if the bomb detonates, an entire region could be wiped out. At first, the commander doubts Carl can handle the mission alone. Once again, Carl proves everyone wrong. He succeeds, and the achievement is broadcast across the nation.
I have an unidentified metal object protruding from the bottom. It found it for us!
You're kidding.
The man who was once dismissed and humiliated for the color of his skin is now celebrated as a national hero. The commander then orders the team to lift the bomb to the surface. But during the operation, something goes wrong. The cable snaps and slams directly into Carl's leg. When Carl wakes up, he is stunned to find himself in a hospital bed. Joe explains that the accident nearly severed his leg, and the doctors have ruled that he will never walk normally again. The news hits Carl hard. He is overwhelmed with shock and shame, believing he has failed to make his father proud. At the same time, Billy Sunday is now shown living in a psychiatric hospital. After losing his diving privileges, he has fallen into deep depression. The next day, as Billy sits alone, a nurse hands him a newspaper. Inside, he sees the headline about Carl's accident. As Carl's former instructor, Billy knows he has to see him. Sometime later, the commander visits Carl along with his assistant. Shortly after, a Navy captain named Hanks arrives. Carl asks for permission to return to duty once he is cleared. But after seeing Carl's condition, Captain Hanks reluctantly states that Carl will never be able to dive again. Instead of breaking down, Carl responds with determination. He presents a newspaper article about a respected Air Force pilot who serves proudly with only one leg. Carl asks Captain Hanks to give him a few weeks to prove that he too can perform his duties and become a source of pride for the Navy. Carl also asks the doctors to amputate his leg so it will not hold him back during future missions. After everyone leaves, Joe finally speaks up. She is furious and deeply worried, arguing that Carl is pushing himself too far. Carl is left torn between two paths, giving up to live a quiet life with his family, or continuing to chase the dream he has fought for all his life. After a long struggle, Carl makes his choice. He decides to pursue his dream once again. As he recovers from surgery, he begins training himself to live and move with only one leg. During one of these sessions, Billy Sunday arrives. He explains that after reading the news about Carl, he realized they share the same fate, both broken by the loss of their ability to dive. But as Carl's former mentor, Billy knows exactly who Carl is. To him, Carl has always been someone who never gives up. Billy promises to do everything he can to convince Navy leadership to give Carl another chance to dive. He also commits to helping Carl through his recovery. The day of the final hearing arrives, the moment that will decide Carl's future in the Navy. At the entrance, a guard stops Billy from going inside. After Carl answers several questions, Captain Hanks orders a guard to bring in a diving suit. Captain Hanks presents Carl with one final test. If Carl can take just 12 steps while wearing a diving suit that weighs over 200 kilograms, he will be allowed to return as a Navy diver. Outside the room, Billy Sunday forcefully presses the guard to let him in. The guard, well aware of Billy's temper and reputation, hesitates only briefly before stepping aside. When the door opens, Billy is stunned by what he sees. The Navy's top officials are instructing Carl to put on the heavy diving suit. From behind, Carl's wife and young son arrive, just in time to witness the most difficult moment of his life. Billy tries to plead for leniency, reminding the officials that even a healthy man would struggle to walk under that kind of weight, especially someone like Carl. But Carl remains calm and focused. With a confident look, he makes it clear that he is ready to prove that physical limitations do not define a person's dreams. Seeing the determination in his former student, Billy finally chooses to stand behind him. Once everything is set, Carl rises to his feet. With every ounce of strength he has, he begins taking his 12 steps, fueled by Billy's unwavering encouragement. Against all odds, Carl completes every single step.
Move your ass, I want my 12. Howdy.
Witnessing his effort, Captain Hanks and the senior officers reach their decision. Carl is approved to return as a Navy diver. The room erupts in applause, filled with admiration for the man who refused to surrender. Joe and Carl's son rush forward, embracing him with pride. In the middle of the celebration, Billy Sunday quietly steps away. His role as a teacher is finally complete. He offers one final salute to the student who taught him a powerful lesson about perseverance, courage, and the unbreakable will to chase a dream. So the moral of the story is, if life tells you to quit, just keep going until it gets tired and gives up first.